Enter a world of sorcery at your peril. Hi, I'm Gabby and welcome back to another edition of the Fragrantician, where we talk about nothing but fragrances. So in this edition we are talking about a very, very iconic fragrance that was launched in 1985, and it really was and still is a fragrance like no other. It is this little beauty. Yes, here we have it, the iconic, you can't really see the lettering here, but it's Poison. The camera's the other way around. Poison by Dior. And this is quite a potion. This is quite a statement. It is very, very enigmatic, very bold, very deep, very sensuous. All of those adjectives that describe poison as being a bewitching and beguiling scent, a beauty, a stunner, polarizing, love it, hate it, loathe it, or absolutely bathe in it. So, Dior Poison, as I say, this was launched in 1985. This bottle here is a semi-vintage formulation. It's from the early 2000s, this bottle I have. So it's about 16, 17 years old. I think it's 2005, I think, from what I remember from this batch code. So this is quite a masterpiece, so let's talk about it. So Poison, as I say, was launched in 1985 by the perfumer Edouard Flechier, who was commissioned to make a fragrance for Dior, because at the time Dior was flailing, I think, in the early 80s, mid 80s. There was a little bit of a slump. You had Miss Dior, the original Miss Dior from 1947, but then you also had the other Dior fragrances like Dior Essence, Diorama, Diorissimo, even Diorling. It was Dior something. So something had to be different. Something had to be completely removed from all of those fragrances, completely transformed. This transformed Dior in the mid-80s. It certainly did. When it came out, it created huge press, huge marketing. I myself at the time was about 12, 13 years old, so I do remember it vaguely. It was a fragrance my mother did wear. It was a fragrance that my mother did wear, but it's a fragrance I absolutely enjoy and love. This is a 50 ml that I have here, which I think is a 1.7 fluid ounce. I also have a little 5 ml Esprit de Parfum, which is in the little stopper. That is mind-blowing as well. But I wanted to talk to you about the eau de toilette. I think it only came in the Esprit de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette. I don't think it came in the Eau de Parfum. You can get an Extrait de Parfum, which I would like. And I know there is another YouTube content creator, so please go and follow and subscribe to her. Her name is Perfume Darling. She is an absolute darling. She, like myself, is a huge Dior fan, and she reviews vintage as well as modern day fragrances, and she does little short reviews, little 4-5 minute reviews, which are really lovely. So please go and check her out. I'll pop her channel below. Anyway, back to this little stunner that we have here. So, when Edouard Flechier bought this out in 1985, I know I'm going to keep saying 1985 a lot. Do you know what? The 80s were such bombastic. They were so... It was a time for me when it was bittersweet. I was, verging on... Well, I was on puberty, and it was a long story anyway. But I remember seeing this kind of bottle on my mother's and grandmother's dressing table. They didn't really wear it a lot, I have to say. My mother's signature was actually opium, which is another story. But Dior, I remember going into the room and sniffing, taking the top off and sniffing it. And I remember it was magical. This is a magical potion. Let's go through the notes, shall we? So, the main notes, what I get to me, is basically tuberose, plum and berries, and it's plum in like a liqueur, drunk plum and berries. That's the only way I can describe it. Incense, honey and a popanax, and I really get that incense, that sweet myrrh, that kind of a popanax, which is that resin that is sweetened with that honey, with the wild berries and the plum, which is completely drunk in a potion of a symphony of all of that together. The tuberose, there's a little bit of jasmine in there as well. Carnation, heliotrope, a little bit of vanilla. The heliotrope gives it some powderiness. The vanilla is a little bit there as well. I do detect a little bit of the vanilla. It's a polarizing scent. You love it or you hate it. It created such a storm when it was launched. You imagine just, and I love it so much. And even if you don't like it, just knowing that it created a stepping stone for all other big fragrances like Lulu Cacharel, like, all of those that kind of came after it. It created the benchmark for that spicy, incensey, floral, berryness, plum. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. It's a real floral of an oriental. It's a real floral oriental. It's so stunning, absolutely is. It really broke everything about aldehydes and chypres and those chypre florals. It came completely away, and it was a position in itself where it was unlike no other fragrance, and people just bought it by the bottles and the bottles and the bottles. Boy, did this really make Dior have a comeback. It really did, because I think at the time they were wondering what was going to happen. It was a big gamble, and it paid off big time. Even today, people still love it. It's a very revered fragrance. It's very sought after. I know it has been reformulated. I do have a reformulated version from today, because in 2011 I think Dior reformulated again, so any bottles after that, it was reformulated before this, which came out in 2005, but this still is a slightly tweaked reformulated version from the original one. So that said, the original and the reformulated, they're still very big on sillage, on longevity, hours and hours and hours. It lasts just as long as my other big fragrances like Angel, like Alien. Actually, it probably lasts a lot longer even. than alien. So it is a huge, big statement. It bowls you over. It's like a deep velvet cloak that just covers you in all of these notes of florals and spices, and oh, it's just, and even a slight citric aspect to it. When you think about it, Dior didn't actually use the name Dior in the fragrance, unlike all of the other fragrances that came before it. So it was a departure, complete departure, but it won. When you think of the name Poison, it's quite a shocking name. And it is shocking because when people would say to you, oh, what are you wearing? Oh, my perfume is called Poison. It created, and it still creates a conversation piece. Absolutely enigmatic. Bowls you over. Completely enigmatic. Completely, this person that wears this is an enigma. An enigma. So, on the occasions that I will wear this, I want to feel like an enigma, like people want to get to know me, are intrigued by me, are intrigued by what makes me tick, other than just a generic perfume that anybody can pick up and spray. This is that type of perfume. Back then, it was the perfume everybody picked up and sprayed. So how times have changed when you think about it. Quite a story. When I think about it, a Popinax has a bit of a lemony resin feel. So maybe that's what I get when I smell it. Oh, it's so intoxicating, and it's lovely, it's beautiful. Again, it's a banger. It's a banger. My husband loves this, but I love it anyway, and I will use this bottle sparingly because it's only a 50 ml. Now, you know me, I will not overspray with this because, well, I did one spray on my hand and the sillage was there. It just, divine. Poison is very controversial, very, very controversial. And at the time, the fashion industry was fairly controversial in itself. You know, new designers were coming into light then. And I think this kind of set the standard, and it set the benchmark for others to come. Poison. What's your poison? So you've been watching another edition of The Fragrantician. But until next time, as I've said before, if people are talking about you, at least they are leaving somebody else alone. But until the next time, I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.